Hi students, Jordan here and welcome back to Bio 25 Online. A couple quick housekeeping items before we get started. A week from today, Monday, you have an exam. The exam will be on April 20th and it will cover all of the labs we've talked about in our new online format. I have uploaded a study guide for the exam and you will find it on Canvas on your modules page. If you have any questions about that, feel free to email me. Other than that update, it's business as usual. Today we'll be talking about the second installment of our muscles unit. And without further ado, let's just get into the video.
We will be continuing our unit on muscles today by discussing the muscles of the upper extremity and arm. So today we'll be working out of lab manual pages 79 and 80. And specifically, we're going to be focusing on the muscles of the shoulder girdle, the muscles of the shoulder joint, the muscles of the arm, and finally the muscles of the anterior and posterior forearms. Just to reiterate, like I've been saying, you will need to be able to identify these muscles based on a picture. So you'll need to be able to look at a picture and be able to identify the muscle based on that picture. And you'll also need to know the actions for these muscles, which are very conveniently listed for you in your lab manual. So let's start off with the muscles of the shoulder girdle. First off, we have the pectoralis minor muscle, which you can see here in this photo. Next, we have the serratus anterior, which is located on the rib cage. And finally, we have the trapezius, which is a triangle-shaped muscle on your back neck area. Next, we have the levator scapulae, and its name actually alludes to its function because it helps elevate the scapula. Next, we have the rhomboid major and rhomboid minor. The rhomboid major is bigger, but the rhomboid minor sits on top of the major. So try and keep those things in mind so that you're able to distinguish between the muscles. Next, we have the pectoralis major, which you should be familiar with because when you do push-ups, that's one of the muscles you're targeting. Next, we have the latissimus dorsi, which is located on your back area, and you can see it here in this right-hand photo. Next, we have the deltoid, which is the triangle-shaped muscle of your shoulder, and you can see it here in this picture. Next, we have the teres major, which you can see on the front region of this photo here. Next, we have the subscapularis, which is basically the muscle underneath the scapula, and you might be going along the list and thinking, oh, we're missing some muscle. We actually see those muscles in this picture here. These are the muscles of the shoulder joint that make up the rotator cuff. So we have the supraspinatus, the infraspinatus, and finally the teres minor, which you can see a little bit better in this photo. So now we're going to be talking about the muscles of the arm. For the muscles of the arm, we have the biceps brachii, which you should all be familiar with. If you're doing a curling motion, for example, you would be working out your biceps brachii. Next, we have the brachialis, which is below the biceps brachii and kind of sits in between the biceps and the triceps, which leads us to the triceps, which is the next muscle shown here. And then finally, we have the anconeus, which is a muscle located in your elbow region. Now we will be talking about the muscles of the anterior forearm. First, we have the brachioradialis, which is a great landmark for yourself when you're trying to divide the muscles that do extension from the muscles responsible for flexion. Now we're going to go through and talk about some of these muscles more in depth. So first we have the pronator teres, which is highlighted here in yellow, and as you can guess, this muscle is responsible for pronation. Next, we have the flexor carpi radialis, which if you kind of look at that name, it can help you figure out its function. So flexor meaning it flexes, and radialis meaning radius or thumb, right? So flexor carpi radialis. Next, we have the palmaris longus, which is highlighted in red there. And in between that, we can see the or on the other side of that rather, we can see the flexor carpi ulnaris. So again, that kind of alludes to its function. And the muscles located on this compartment of the arm are all titled flexor because they actually function to flex. So that can help you and be a clue. Finally, we have the flexor digitorum superficialis, which I had to show in a separate photo because you can't actually see it in the middle one, but it's responsible for flexion of your digits. Now we're going to talk about the muscles of the posterior forearm in a very similar format. Just to reorient ourselves, we have the brachioradialis again on the thumb side. Highlighted in blue, we have the extensor carpi radialis. It actually has two components, longus and brevis, but I would just expect you to know that it's called the extensor carpi radialis. Next, we have the extensor digitorum, which to me has always sounded like a Harry Potter spell, and this muscle is responsible for extension of your digits. Next, we have the extensor carpi ulnaris, which is the muscle responsible for helping to extend your pinky. And this model here also shows the anconeus muscle, just so you can kind of orient yourself where these muscles are located from different points of view. Finally, we have the supinator muscle, which is the muscle responsible for supination of the forearm. So here's a labeled picture of an anatomical muscle arm model. This is the type of model we would be using in class, and this is just to help give you an idea of where a lot of these muscles would be located on a model. I won't be using this picture for your quiz or for your exam, but I think it's important that you orient yourself with different anatomical models to help you understand where these muscles are on your own body. So that's all we'll be talking about today. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, you know where to find me. Please feel free to reach out. And finally, for our fun anatomy fact of the day, the palmaris longus is absent in about 14% of the population. However, this number varies greatly in African, Asian, and Native American populations. So there's actually a way to test and see if you have the palmaris longus. Extend your arm out in front of you and touch your thumb to your pinky finger. And if you see kind of this prominent tendon when you perform that motion, that means you have the palmaris longus. I, for example, do have it, but try this test on yourself and see if you have it too.
Okay, so hopefully that helped clear up the muscles that you're expected to know in today's video. If you have any questions, I would encourage you to reach out over email. And without further ado, I'll just remind you all to stay safe, stay kind, and stay healthy, and I will see you in the next one.